This is the Simpit. I'm your host, Shaun Cole, and today we're here for a very special interview, and it is in regard to two of my favorite topics. If you're a fan of the show, you know I love any chance that sim racing gets to cross over into real life, and even better, when a great sim racer gets an opportunity to show real life drivers just how well prepared we are for the real life activity of racing. So today our guest is Glenn McGee. He is the Mazda MX5 Cup champion from this year on iRacing, and with that, this was a cutthroat competition that really was going to be able to be an opportunity to be a finalist in the Mazda 2015 Road to 24 shootout. So let's go ahead and talk to Glenn right now about that road to winning this chance, this huge opportunity. And welcome to the show, Glenn McGee. I'm going to go to my headphones just so I can hear him perfectly. Glenn, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us today.
It's my pleasure, Shaun. This is fantastic to be on your show. I'm a big fan of yours. I've watched a lot of your videos, so I appreciate you having me on your show today.
Well, I appreciate it as well, and thanks for being a fan of the show. So before we get too far along into things, what is the Mazda Road to 24 competition? I mean, what's the prize? I mean, what's going on with this, just so people out there really have an idea at what's at stake here?
Yeah, so the Mazda Road to 24 shootout, it's a competition that Mazda's done every year. They take the best club racing drivers from all over the nation, and they have them compete against one another. It's all the champions from SCCA and NASA. So it's guys that have been in Mazdas for a long time. But this year they're having the simulation drivers in it as well. So we'll have iRacers in there, the best Mazda simulation drivers from around the world in that competition. And the prize for it is a $100,000 scholarship to compete in the 2016 battery tender Mazda MX5 Cup Series. And this is a global series. This is it's new this year. It used to be only a national competition, but they've since come out with this really sleek-looking, beautiful MX5 Cup car.
The new car, yeah.
The new car, yeah, it's awesome. And they've, it's really light. It's even more lightweight now. Really lightweight, really aggressive racing car. And what used to happen was it was a professional competition, but if you wanted to do it, you had to either buy a car and build it yourself or pay a team to build it for you, and then pay them to take it out there for you and do everything for you. But this year with the new car, Mazda has taken the car and developed it from the start to be a race car. So it's from the factory race car, and it's incredibly affordable, dependable, like fun to drive racing car. If you could think about it, if you wanted to do that on your own, if you wanted to take one of these cars and develop it yourself, it would cost a fortune. But this car, it's only $53,000.
Right.
Which it sounds like a lot maybe to some people, but for a racing car, it's minuscule. It's nothing. And not only is it nothing, but you're getting a car. It's a spec series, so everybody has the same car. And this is an extremely spec series because all the cars come from the factory prepared, and it's developed by Long Racing, a racing team.
Right.
So you're getting a fully developed race car, really inexpensive, and you get to race against everybody on a level platform. SCCA Pro is going to be sanctioning everything, and they'll be scrutinizing everything, and they do an awesome job. I think that series has always been a very well scrutinized series, it seems like. People can't get away with much in that series, and now it's going to be very well scrutinized, but also the cars come from the factory. You have a sealed Skyactiv G 2.0 liter Mazda engine in it. You have a sealed transmission. Everybody runs the battery tender lithium-ion battery. It's like a really dependable performance battery for that series. Same brake package, everything, and you can't touch anything. You really can just drive it and you can set it up, and that's it. So not only is it an affordable series, but it's a global series now. So I think it's really going to be starting now. We have this really awesome, aggressive looking car. You have all these drivers that can hopefully afford to do it, or at least a lot more. And it's on a global level. I think it's sort of approaching that simulator feel where you're competing against the best guys in the world. And I think it's going to be really the most competitive sports car series in the world in a couple of years here. So
wow, what an opportunity! You got it.
I'm getting at the ground floor. Hopefully.
So, but you still have a long way to get to that point.
Yeah, that's like the goal. I don't know if it's a secret or not. I don't think it is, but we will actually be driving the Cup cars during the shootout. So we'll get the first taste of, there's even the regular pro drivers haven't driven this thing yet. So we'll be getting the first taste of those cars and getting a feel for it. And
so ultimately, that at least helps you a little bit against some of your competition running the last gen MX5s.
That's a great point. That's a really good point. We're going to a track that nobody knows, and we're going to in a car that nobody's driven. So it's actually a perfect scenario. And it's a new track, but when you work on the sim, you develop ways to learn a track, and you develop ways to be fast right away. And I'm going to be employing all those skills that I've developed. It'll translate right to the track, and I'll be doing that immediately. And I'm hoping it'll be an advantage. I'm hoping I'm even better prepared in some ways mentally than some of the top guys, real life guys that are going there.
That's a good point. It gets back to what you were talking about, how sim racers have so many more laps than real life racers, because we can do it every day, all the time, nonstop, rain or shine, and for free. So, even if the one thing we do get is the fact that, you can learn a track real quick as a sim racer.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Shaun, if you win this competition, you're also become a Mazda development driver. So you become a part of the Mazda Road to 24 ladder system, which there's an Indy ladder, Mazda Road to Indy ladder system, which Spencer Pigot recently won in Indy Lights, and he's come up all the way driving Mazda Formula cars, and now he's going to Indy this year. Well, on our end, you go to the shootout and you enter the MX5 Cup Series, the Global Series, and you work your way up through the Continental Series into their actual prototype car, their Sky Active Tudor Series car. So.
It's so great seeing Mazda being so back in racing. I mean, it's like, they never left, but it's like, it sure seems like they are really trying to make an impression in racing again.
Well, I'll tell you, and that's good that you bring that up. They've always been in racing, and I know you say back in racing, and I think you mean like the bigger stage of things. They have been the company that has helped as far as the grassroots goes, and bringing up talent. They have been the only company to support talent and cover the broad spectrum of racers across the world, and particularly in the U.S. You cannot. There's no way to become a pro driver unless you go through. The only way you can do it is through Mazda's system. They're the only one providing that. So they've always been the way into racing through Mazda. But I think you're right. They're gearing up more and more to compete against the top guys, and I think they really are going to do really well. They just came out with a new sports car, which I'm hoping they'll turn into a race car here soon, because it looks like like it could go to Le Mans and do pretty well.
Oh, is that the new rotary RX-7?
Yeah, the Vision. Yep.
Oh, that car is so beautiful.
It is,
and it reminds me of some very, very exotic cars out there. So it immediately puts it in some pretty high company.
Yeah. So yeah, they are racing, I think, as far as the grassroots go, for sure. And as far as becoming a racing driver, you go through Mazda, and they are like you say, there's more Mazdas raced than any other car. Because they're the most affordable and most fun car and easiest car to get out there and run. Everybody has one, and it's great competition. So.
Yeah, I spent a year working and living in Sonoma at Infineon or Sears Point, whatever you want to call it, and when the club racing weekends would happen, I mean, you'd see grids of 100 Miatas out there. I mean,
oh my God!
Exactly. It's just insane. But yeah, and they used to have the commercial on any given Sunday. There were more races won by Miatas or by Mazdas than any other car, and I don't think that's actually changed.
No,
so.
Because they're the only ones. They're the only ones bringing an affordable way to go in through racing. And they're the only ones with the ladder system and to be able to do it as well, So they're covering all the grassroots, and they're covering professional ladders into racing. So
yeah, and you can get a screaming deal on a used race prep Miata. I mean, you see it. So I mean, like you said, it's a great entry point, and that's just a starting point too.
Absolutely.
Now, when the story of this competition first broke, I myself got excited. iRacing announces this great opportunity. A sim racer is going to be able to have a shot in real life in a car. and they were running the Mazda, and I thought, hey, this is a fun car to drive. I'm getting in there. And then I found this was not going to be an easy challenge. This is going to be one of the most cutthroat things ever. So my first question to you was, when they made that announcement, did you immediately start salivating or chomping at the bit, like, I got to be part of this?
Absolutely. I had an inkling that it might happen, and I'm watching the boards, and caught maybe a week before the competition, saw that they were doing this year, inviting the number one iRacers to the shootout. So I got really excited and jumped on there and started practicing in the Mazda, and made sure I was ready for competition. But yeah, it's a fabulous cutthroat competition for sure.
Now, when you got there, I mean, what was it like when this is the kind of thing where, like, you iRace every day and you see a certain level, but then when you get to something like this, when there's so much at stake, it kind of changes things quite a bit, doesn't it?
I think so. I think as a sim racer, you're always developing yourself, and you're competing with the best in the world. Usually in iRacing, you are competing with the best in the world, and you're all pushing each other to be better. So you're always improving. You're learning every series you do, any race, it doesn't matter. But when you enter something like this, everybody sort of notches up. They crank it up to 11. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So so you have to do the same, and you cannot make mistakes. It's not unlike the real racing in the MX5 Cup Series. In real life, I think it's the most aggressive, the most competitive racing really in sports car racing, because the cars are so equal. But in this as well, it's the same thing, and everybody has the same equipment, and the only difference is your driving and your preparation for it. So.
Sure. So let's talk about a little preparation. How much time were you putting in before races to be ready for the big race? Or I'm assuming that it really broke down to, like, making sure you got in the strength of field races, of course.
Oh yeah, so the community, the sim racing community is awesome. We're fighting one another, but we're all friends, and we kind of want all of us to get there, but we know there can only be, a couple of us. But we all got together and made sure, okay, if we want to have the highest strength of field race, which is the races that score the most points, let's schedule something that works for all the Australians. Let's schedule something that works for the Japanese. Let's schedule something that works for the Europeans. And let's meet up and do a big race. And that typically was, we could adjust it if we needed to, but it was typically Sunday at 19 GMT.
And so how much time and energy would you put in getting ready for the race each week?
Every driver kind of has their own way to go about it. Some drivers, like I know last year Steve Diem, he's kind of the guy that puts in a lot of laps in preparation. What I find works for me is I will usually do, if the race is on Sunday, I'll try and get some laps in Wednesday or Thursday, and it only has to be like 10 laps. And that is to sleep on. So I use that to sleep on it, because I think there is an advantage I've found to sleeping on it. Sort of takes some of that, what you've done, and put it in your subconscious.
Yes.
So I do that so that my brain kind of knows, okay, this is the track that we're doing. And then I'll come back to the track the next day, so maybe the day before, and I'll usually do about 40 laps, or about an hour and a half. I find that I will get up the speed very quickly, but then I'll sort of peak out. And then if I'm working on setup, I'll run for hours. I love working on setup, but this was a fixed setup series, so I would just I would do my 40 laps, get it in there, and if I did any more time, I wouldn't gain anything from it. So, but then I'll come back the morning of the race. So if it's a Sunday race, I'll typically do my qualifying the day before, and that almost counts as practice to some degree. But I will typically do maybe an hour before the race, I'll run a race stint. So I'll run at least one race stint, or maybe even 2 race stints. And that will give you, a lot of drivers focus on, I got to get this lap time right. Or, I'm going to focus on this one corner, but it really helps to just run laps. And so not only am I running laps, but I'm also seeing how the tires handle over a race distance, and seeing how the car develops, because the car does change its feeling as as certain tires wear. These sims are taking in heat calculations and everything like that. So yeah, I take those race stints really help you prepare in that way. So
Right. Oh, I'm glad. I'm really glad you took us through the entire process there, because I mean that's exactly why I like doing these interviews. Talking to some of the fastest guys in sim racing, and it's like I'm one of those guys who can be accused at times of putting in far too many laps. And like you said, sometimes you need to walk away and let it just break into the subconscious a little bit, and that kind of gives you a little more insight or a little more second nature. All right, so when it came to racing, I mean, I know you can do more than one race. It's typical iRacing, so you can average your points. But I mean, there were important races. Did you feel like it was all on the table every time you were on the track?
If you're not careful and you don't prepare right, you can feel that way, and that is a very dangerous mindset to go into a race with. I've been sim racing since in the real serious sim racing scene since 2006, 2007 is when I started, and I've been able to develop. All these races are very competitive and stressful, and you do sweat in the races, and it's just like driving a real race, but I've sort of prepared my mind to be calm in most every situation. But I would say that obviously there is a lot of pressure, and typically I am calm, but there will be maybe 1 out of every 20 races, for whatever reason, my mind goes the wrong direction, and you get really nervous, and you have to bring yourself back to a calm state, because it just does not help you to be nervous about it. But.
Right. Now, were you on your own? Did you have teammates you were working with in it?
Unfortunately, I didn't have teammates. I noticed a lot of the people around Japan and Australia sort of work together. The Europeans kind of work together, but it's really the Spaniards are the guys that, and the Spaniards are all fast, of course. But they're a tight team as far as working together. A big thing in this series was qualifying, and my own personal policy is not to draft in qualifying. And actually, in the real series, you're not allowed to draft in qualifying either. But there is an art to drafting and qualifying, and some of the guys would get together and are very skilled at following each other around the track. And it's probably worth at least 2 or 3 tenths at most tracks more. So that was another thing I was sort of fighting. I didn't have any. I would actually talk with Steve Diem a lot, who's a very good racer, or Richard Eklund, who's a fabulous. They're top level racers, but we never work together in the races, or in qualifying either. So so I was giving up time in qualifying, but I still made it work. I still got tied for the most poles, so I was still making it work for me. I was just making it that little bit extra harder.
All right. So now, as the season starts playing out, I mean, I'm sure in the beginning there's a whole feeling out process for everybody involved, and then into it, I'm assuming you started to get a sense of the who's who and what was going on.
Size everybody up, right?
Yeah.
I mean, some names you recognize. In sim racing, there are famous sim racers. And you're all happy that Gregor Hutu hasn't shown up yet. But we have even Martin Krunke and all those guys. All the top names have tried it out, and it's a very difficult series. And those guys, for them, they're coming from the Formula One car, which is, you're on 2 different ends of the spectrum there. But I think the MX5, I knew some of the names. I mean, I knew to look out for Steve Diem. He's super consistent, extremely fast in qualifying. There were some new names like Ade Lopez, who I knew of, and he was known as like the MX5 guy, right? And he and Richard Eklund actually. And I'm probably butchering everybody's name, by the way.
It's common on my show.
Okay, so you realize those guys are gonna be fast, but you don't know if they've been tested to the degree that this competition is gonna be. So, but a lot of the guys, they were right there. And I don't think there were any maybe big surprises out there, but I really have a lot of respect for all of the guys. But particularly Ade Lopez gave me a really hard run this year. So actually, we started out. I started the first race, and he took me out 2 of the races, and you only get 4 races, and then I had bad luck and got taken out. So I started the whole season in the red, in a bad place. But as the season progressed, we both had a massive amount of respect for one another, and we just raced. I mean, we could race door to door so super hard at the end, and it was a lot of fun. Yeah, it was great.
I was gonna say that's so much fun, and doing it at that level, it's just fantastic, especially when you know the guys. I mean, again, that's where it really starts to, at its best, emulate real life racing. I mean, because it's no different when you get into real life, because it is the same guys week after week for the most part.
It is. It's funny how racing is like that in real life and in sim racing. I mean, you look at guys like Gregor, who for years have dominated sim racing. It really would seem like if you were just a mathematician or something, or you did statistics or something, you would say, well, Gregor's going to be up there and then Glenn's up there. It's going to be random every week. But it's funny how the top guys can continue to perform, and they do have to develop themselves and get better because we're all pushing one another.
Absolutely.
But there is it's just odd. There's a pecking order, to some degree, and you can make a difference by working harder, but they can do the same thing. So
yeah. So now this competition had something that was a little different in that at the end of the season, I believe it was going to be 10 people were going to be eligible for the next phase. I'll call it for right now. So coming down to the season, there was a lot of emphasis on being in the top 10, of course, but knowing that it was going to go into another phase, how much pressure did you feel to be number 1 or even number 2, knowing that 2 people were going to be selected from the 10?
Like I said, I started off on my back foot in that series because I was taken out the first race. So I was probably almost in 20th place, I think, going in. And I had to build my way up. And I was thinking I have to get in the top 10 the first 2 weeks. But my performance was very strong, both in qualifying and the races, and the results started coming. I was making good choices in the races too. A lot of guys will fight. I knew when to fight and when not to fight. And if somebody was going to make an aggressive pass, I would let them have it and get them back. So I was making smart choices in the races too, and I think that helped. But my results got better and better, and I started to think, well, I need to start going for the top charts here. I need to get the top position. But as far as pressure to get the top position, I knew I had to be in the top 3. I think top 3 or 4 is what I wanted, and I wanted to be the highest ranked American for sure. Mm-hmm. But the results just kept coming, and my thought was, well, they're probably going to pick an international driver, and they only have room for 1 American driver, maybe. So I wanted to make sure I was the top American for sure. And but I saw the goal coming for the top spot, so I ended up going for that. But I'll tell you what, the most pressure was not. I was comfortable being in the top 10. It was the steps after that, the unknowns, that really were worrying me.
Right. Okay. So in the end, you finished 2nd place overall, right? And you were the top American.
The top American, yeah, and 2nd overall. Like I said, I didn't probably could have had better qualifying, worked with some teammates in qualifying, but we ended up 2nd, and I was happy with that result for sure. I wasn't as focused on getting first as well,
I was gonna say mission accomplished right there. That's huge right there. And depending on how people judge for their own perception of things, it's like, okay, well, top 2. It's like you are in no matter what in my book, but okay. So, but that my book I wasn't a judge. So the next phase was very interesting because now the 10 of you have to basically submit a resume. What would you call what you had to submit to them? I'd like to hear your word or interpretation on what you felt you need to send them to represent yourself.
Yeah, so this is where I got, the racing stuff I know and then calm and know what I need to do and, can go after the results that I want. This is where it kind of gets a little more nerve-wracking because there is, obviously you can do the work and put in the time and make smart decisions, but it's still judged at this point. So it's, it's part of it's out of your hands. But they asked us to Mazda asked all of their drivers for the shootout. So the shootout, the Mazda Road to 24 is, it's a shootout that traditionally it only took club racers from the national scene. It would take club racing champions, and Mazda would find out, okay, who's the best guy to represent us. So now they've Mazda, they're a very innovative company. They've always done something different from everybody else, and they've kind of caught on that, well, these sim racers are actually a talent pool that we should be tapping into. So so they're allowed us in this year, and they have some criteria for all the drivers to submit. So iRacing's idea was not to burden us with any extra submissions. So the criteria that they gave to us was very in line with what Mazda wanted. So the first thing that they asked us to do, and I'll tell you what, though, our time compression on this we were so compressed on all of this, because if you look at the real life champions that were coming into this competition, they knew that they were in because they were champions early on, so they kind of were prepared. We did not know till we're like, all right, who's it gonna be?
Right.
Yeah. But they asked everyone, if you were in the top 10, okay. And I had a pretty good idea I was in the top 10, so at least I had that going for me. But they didn't tell anybody what we had to do until so it was fair.
Yeah.
The whole season was over. So anyway, they asked us to do a racing bio, and in that bio, they want you to say any sim racing experience you have, any real racing experience you have, and I think Mazda also may have asked, do you have a racing license, or do you know how to drive a stick?
Great question. That. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I think they are interested in sim drivers, but they want someone who they don't want to start from complete scratch. That's why they're taking the top 10. All of us are top-level talent drivers, but they need to find the guys that can make up the extra bits, the marketing stuff, the PR.
And they're jumping right into the deep end. Their competition is going to be NASA champion, SCCA champion, NASA champion, West Coast Teen Mazda. You guys with not only champions but experience in the Mazda. So I mean, you were jumping into into the tidal wave, really, not even the deep end. So I understand them needing to kind of keep a certain level or criteria or bar, because this wouldn't just be another event against a bunch of sim racers where we now learn how to drive. You're, again, got to be going up. Okay, so...
Well, exactly. So you're not competing against other sim drivers. You're competing against other real-life champions. So, they need... I think if you're talented in the sim, you're going to be talented in real life. But Mazda can only take so many people, and they want to make sure they bring the right people in, because I think they are interested in bringing, doing something new and bringing a sim driver through their driver development program. But they want to start out, with a big talent pool, and then cull the guys that they think have what it takes. So
yeah.
Hopefully, I guess I showed that so far, but hopefully I can carry it through today.
So let's go a little through your background beyond sim racing. I mean, you have some karting experience, right?
Yeah. So sim racing has been insanely good to me. It's so odd. I was a game console before I became a sim racer. So it's not exactly sim racing, but it's sort of the gateway drug to sim racing.
Absolutely, I say that all the time.
I started out in the consoles, and was back then you could post your times online and things like that, right? And I had some of the quickest times in the world in the game consoles, and I happened to be my first time at a go-kart track, and there was a tuner there, a mechanic, the head mechanic, we call them tuners. He and I were talking, and we were talking about the sim racing stuff, or the game console stuff, and he plays the games, and he realized who I was. And he said, well, I'd like to see how you do in real life. So why don't you come back in 2 or 3 weeks, and they teach 2-day, karting courses there. So I went out and came back and did a 2-day sort of driver intro to racing, karting sort of thing. And the guy was very excited to put a sim racer into a go-kart. And, I was listening to him and working on it. And we ended up breaking the track record by the end of the weekend. And because the karts are so easy to drive. I mean, they are awesome to drive. It's just, it's, very intuitive, but there is a lot you have to learn. But, and the team owner saw that, and he said, well, I'd like you to try and do a tryout with us, because every year they do a karting tryout, and this is Ocala Grand Prix, by the way, which is like one of the top karting teams in the nation. And I went and did the tryout, and there were guys there that Jonathan Somerton was there, who is he's won in A1GP. He's beaten Vettel in Formula 3. He raced for Rahal Letterman in their cars in the 12 hours of Sebring and won that. And we had a lot of other karters in there, and they ended up choosing me and Jonathan Somerton to represent the team. And I did about a year and a half of karting, so I didn't do a lot. But I won championships immediately. And I actually beat the guy. There was a Florida Winter Tour champion from Brazil, and I ended up beating him, and the Brazilians were going crazy there. Because nobody knew who I was. So, they figured I was cheating or something, I guess. But, hands in the air and like, what do you...
Oh, fantastic. Oh, this is great.
It was a lot of fun, yeah.
Oh, you were like the perfect hybrid of like a lot of great instinctive skill and a lot of luck, which I hate to say it, but that's racing. Welcome to racing. It's like, okay. So and then now you've driven Miatas before even.
I have had 2 opportunities. In 2011, I was invited through sim racing again, and like you said, it's a lot of luck. I've been very, very fortunate, and sim racing does open doors. It really does. But some of all the pro drivers and all the guys working to become pro, they are smart now, and they are on the sims with us. You race against Justin Wilson or all these pro drivers are very fanatical about, and they realize it is a tool for them to become a better driver. So they recognize the top sim drivers, and I have respect for them, and they have respect for what the top sim drivers are doing. So I was asked to do just a Lemons race, which is just it's sort of a podunk, like a car that can barely get through a race.
Yeah, but it's not so podunk. People end up taking it rather seriously, funny enough.
Well, we took it really seriously, like way too seriously. There's some serious cars in there too, actually, that were really fast. And we had Tristan Yunez, actually, who's a factory driver for Mazda now. And we had Christian Shimshak, who won the 2013 MX5 Cup Series. So those are my intro, like those are my teammates, and I'm trying to learn. Due to a car in it was a 24-hour race, and we actually had a Formula 3 driver, Jonathan George, British Formula 3 driver, with us. So I had a great, perfect experience, the best guys I could be around, and they were very helpful. Getting me up to speed. It was my first time in a car, So, but we ended up winning the race, and my times were developed throughout the race, and they were within a second of what the other guys were doing. It was kind of hard to tell because you have to take care of the brakes and tires, So,
sure.
But
and the car.
I want to make sure I brought the car home.
And the car's always kind of diminishing on an event like that, even on the good cars,
That's what I would blame it on, yeah.
Yeah. So no, but it sounded like for the purposes of this event, I mean, if I just had to, place my bets on people. I mean, you have a great resume. You finished second in the competition. You've got some on-track experience. You're a perfect candidate. So, despite that, which I'm sure you had to acknowledge those attributes as well, but how long was it from when you submitted your info till you found out if you were in or out?
Oh God, that was the worst time of this whole thing. I've been very calm leading up to the shootout. I feel very comfortable, but the time from making these hastily made videos that are not, I'm a perfectionist. So I'm like, I could do so much better than what I just did. But I only had I was traveling at the time. I only had 4 days to do it, and it's just, it took a month to really between the time to tell you what you had to do and then them telling you if you were in or not. And that was the most, a lot of nights not sleeping during that.
So. I bet I would be dying. I mean, literally, I wouldn't know what to do with myself.
Well, I would write iRacing. I would say, hey, guys, I may not make it in. I know that, but I'd like to get a head start on the proposal stuff because I knew we had to submit other stuff to Mazda. And they were, and they said, well, don't do anything yet because we haven't picked you yet and blah, 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 blah. And so in my head, I'm thinking, oh, God, they are not going to pick me, so that made it worse.
Okay, so now that's not the only time you've had real life in-car experience beyond karting, though. I mean, you've had other opportunities that go even beyond that.
Yeah, so I've had a couple of opportunities in real cars, 2 opportunities in Mazdas. So I've done a 24-hour with Tristan Yunez, the factory Mazda driver, and Christian Shimshak, who's now the 2013 MX5 Cup champion. But I also, in 2013, and I also was able to do the 13 hours of VIR, which is a really big SCCA, major endurance race. And in that case, I usually get in the car like about once a year is all I can really get in there. But any chance you can get, I'll get in there. But that VIR race, I was asked by, all these guys are sim racing fans, and all the pro drivers are, and Nathaniel Sparks, who is currently an MX5 Cup driver, his father had a car for that race. He had a Spec Miata, and he asked me, hey, we want to see how a sim driver does. We'd like to give you an opportunity to learn a real car, basically, because he wants to see me make it. You know what I mean? And we're running this car. My dad runs it. We're not really doing a whole lot with it, but let's just go out there. We have Drake Kemper, who's in the Mazda driver development, actually, and he's in the MX5 Cup Series as a winner in that series. I think he placed third this year, actually, third or fourth. So again, really great drivers around me, and so that was a funny event. I was told like the week before, I went to SCCA and said, "Hey, I've gotten an international C license. Can I get a full-time competition license?" And I got my license just before the event, and red-eyed over to Virginia, and I literally hadn't slept. Woke up that morning and did not sleep at all that night because I was traveling, and I got to the track at 6 or 7 in the morning just in time for the drivers' meeting. And actually, I did like 1,000,000 laps on iRacing at VIR, so that was my training. I got there, was sleeping whenever I could in between drivers' meetings and the actual event. And so my first experience at VIR was in a Spec Miata, and I was very calm about driving the car because I had so many laps on iRacing at VIR. But I was most nervous about, okay, when I get in the pits, I didn't have time to even to learn how to get in and out of the car. Right. So I'm like, okay, I got to figure out how to get in and out of the car and not slow everybody down. So that was when I was most nervous. But so in that race, I came out of the pits, never driving, only driving a Spec Miata once before that, and never driving VIR. And I came out, throttle down, and Randy Popes goes by me at about 160, and I'm like, well, okay, that's new, and
whoa. I'm sorry, I'm just blown away. I mean, again, into the deep end you go.
always. They always throw. I don't get I wish I had more opportunities to develop myself as a driver in the real world. It's always kind of being thrown into a situation where you have to learn on the fly, and I do like those situations, and keeping calm is important, right, to be able to implement those. But
so how did it play out from there? So yeah, now you're out on track.
Oh God! So they had a pit manager, and they were taking times, and I had radio, and I didn't realize I had radio till I put them in. I forgot I had radio, and I'm going and doing some laps, and I hear somebody talk in my ear and say, "Okay, you're doing 140s," and I'm like, "Okay." They're like, "You need to get quicker." And my times just, I'm trying to learn some of the corners. My times just tick down, by big chunks, and then I within. Every lap it was like, all right, you're in the 30, you're doing 35s. All right, now you're in, you're doing 28s. And I eventually got it down to really quickly. I got it into the 20s, and then I got it within a second of by my second stint, I got it into with less than a second than the top current MX5 Cup drivers that, Drake Kemper and Nathaniel Sparks. They are third and fourth in the championship from this year.
Wow, that's incredible.
A great experience. Again, it was endurance racing, so there is an element of taking care of the car, taking care of the brakes, and I'm very conscious about that sort of. I'm not.
Are you trying to downplay this? You can't downplay such a thing. I'm sorry. I won't let you downplay it. This is fantastic. This is just incredible. I mean, this is. I mean, you have a lot of talent, and it's obvious. It's no wonder you're selected. So
Well, I don't think it's specific to me, though. I think there's a lot of talent out there. It's just unfortunately, the racing world is not set up yet to bring sim drivers. Mazda's done the best job of any company to bring talent through racing because they have the most affordable racing programs to get through. But there's no way to bring sim drivers in until now, and Mazda's recognized that, and I'm hoping. I hope I am successful in this, but I hope I show well so that other sim drivers, because I'm not the only talent out there, you know. So
sure, all right. So okay. So back to our storyline here. You have a very impressive resume. You have great on track experience, but you're certainly not a pro race car driver. And you are, second in the top American. So you send everything off. You wait forever. So what happens when you get the phone call? How were you contacted? I should say. Did you get a phone call? You get a letter?
No, I got an email, and I didn't even read the email. I clicked on my email and it said congratulations, and that's all I read. I said, it was like iRacing.com, and it said congratulations. And I got so excited I forgot to read the email, and I started running around the room. And I came back and read it, and it said, that I was selected to represent iRacing. And I had so much energy from that, I forgot to eat, and I was running around the room. I was like, well, I better put this energy to use. So I went out and ran 3 or 4 miles, came back, was still excited about it. So.
Right. I'm glad you didn't run out of the room to come back and find out it said, congratulations, you've earned credits.
That would have been terrible. Yeah, the roller coaster ride.
So, all right, so congratulations, you're in. So now, where does that take? I mean, you're still in, but you still now need to, like you said, prepare some stuff for Mazda? Or was it just take everything you got and send it to them because you were ready to go?
Yeah, so, in addition to, we had to prepare a race bio that's in the iRacing, but they also asked us to submit a video. So this video was part of the judgment for iRacing, but it was also part of the judgment for Mazda. And the hard part of it is you're trying to balance that. You're trying to promote iRacing because of everything they've done for sim drivers. But you really, Mazda is the big player here, and they're the ones that are giving all these drivers the opportunity. So, I did my race bio, but I also submitted a video, and again, I had like 4 days to do that. And I just made sure to the video. Actually, the criteria for the video was if you were going to win the shootout, what is your 4-year plan? Like, how are you going to become a professional race car driver? Because they don't want somebody that's going to just come in and go, And I think a lot of the guys, there were other people, obviously other sim drivers it was top 10, that obviously they definitely have the talent. They would have been super fast on track. But I think where they probably failed was in their videos, maybe not understanding exactly what Mazda was asking for. Mm-hmm. And it would be great to just be a super fast driver, and then you work just like basketball or something like that. You play in high school and you're the best basketball player, and you go pro. But that doesn't happen in racing. You can't make it just on talent. So media and PR is very important. Understanding the business of racing is very, very important. So I tried to demonstrate that in my video, and demonstrate that I understood what it took, in 4 minutes, what it took to be successful.
Right.
So I think that helped as well.
Very cool. Very cool. So now this is all coming up. November 8th, I believe, is when you get going with this.
Yeah, so the event is November 8th through 10th, so if your audience wanted to watch it, they could, or Mazda's covering it. So if you went to Twitter and went to @Mazda Racing, they'll be covering the whole event, and they'll be able to tell you how the sim driver's doing, and they'll have photos and things like that and video. And
very cool.
So should be interesting.
Very cool.
Definitely go there and check it out.
So yeah, and we've got MazdaMotorsports.com. And that's just their website, and I know they'll have some info there. I know they also have it at Mazda Racing on Twitter, like you said. Also, #MRT24, I believe they'll have stuff going on and news stuff there as well.
Yeah, hashtag MRT24, which is Mazda Road to 24. All of us, there's all sorts of content. Even right now, you could go on there on Twitter and go to the hashtag MRT24, and you'll find videos from all of us drivers, and just sort of how we're preparing for it, or Mazda might be giving you some tidbits for it. So
right,
yeah.
Okay, so now the event is at Carolina Motorsports Park. Dang. What do you, no, but what do you know about Carolina Motorsports Park?
I don't think anybody knows anything about Carolina Motorsports. I think Mazda picked. It's a private track. I think it might even be one of those golf course sort of deals. So nobody's allowed in there if you're a member, maybe.
Right.
And I think they specifically chose that track so that no one would have an advantage going in. And it's a disadvantage for me because the track isn't on. I don't even think it's scanned on a simulator. So I have to see if there's something I can. If there's, I guess I'll have to prepare by visualization and videos. Old.
Yeah. How much do you know about the way they're going to conduct the competition?
Well, I have my own assumptions, and I do my due diligence, and I've actually interviewed, called up judges and coaches that aren't going to be judges this year, other drivers that have been in the events before, and I just got okay, what should I wear there? How should my hair?
No, that's a great question.
So, it's a hard one to figure out.
Yeah, you don't want to come looking like a slob, and at the same time, if you need to wear a suit, you wear a suit, sure.
Yeah. Honestly, I think this year is going to be different. This year, from what I understand, is going to be the most challenging year that there's been. We have the largest driver lineup. Usually they pick like 4 of the 6 guys. There's 9 guys this year.
Right.
And new to this year, which has caught my eye, was usually it's only champions that go to the shootout. This year we have what's called at-large candidates. And these are guys that have proven themselves as being fast in a car, and they've also proven themselves as promoting Mazda, great promoters of Mazda, comfortable with media and marketing. So either Mazda or the judges, I don't know how exactly they were selected, but somebody really likes these guys.
Right.
Put them in the competition. So and I think it's been arranged a bit I think Mazda wants to see a really successful driver come out this year, and they have a David Cook, I think, is running a lot of it. He's a guy at Mazda, and he used to be a racing driver. He is a racing driver, but he used to race. I think he raced like AJ Allmendinger and stuff in Formula cars. So I'm sure he's probably putting a lot of input in the program, and he's taking it from a driver develop. He knows how to develop drivers, I'm sure.
Yeah. And
I think he's set help sort of mold it a bit more and make it a really, really difficult competition this year. So what I do know about it, though, I do know that, and they have given us an agenda. We'll show up there on Sunday, and we'll just do a full day of media interviews. They're probably going to try and trip us up on questions. They're probably going to ask us questions that there's no way we could possibly know. That maybe nobody really knows unless you're an engineer, a tire engineer or something. Just probably to see how you would react to it.
Sure.
They're going to be going over setup in a car, maybe data analysis. So are you able to read data analysis? And it's funny, a lot of I've read some of the other guys that are competing in this competition, the real life drivers that are in it, and they're like, yeah, this is going to be tough. We've got this champion and that champion. They name them by name and where they're from and what championship they won, and then I saw it then they go, oh yeah, and there's going to be some iRacers there. But as far as data analysis and car setup is very important, to winning races. And I think it's funny because being a sim driver, sim driving is or racing in general is a mental sport. And I've had more laps probably than any of these guys mentally. And I look at more data and more setup work probably than any of these guys. I can change setup on the car, in a second and go out and see what it feels like. So they have the real world experience. They are going to have somewhat of an advantage, but I don't think it's going to be to the degree that they feel it's going to be, and I hope they keep thinking that way.
Yeah.
Because it could only hurt them not to take us seriously. You know what I mean?
I agree.
Either we don't do well and it's fine, and what they believe is what they believe, or the other scenario is we do really well and they're like, oh my god, I have to worry about this simulation driver.
Yeah, and know they're gonna have to keep fearing it for the rest of the time.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, great! Now we got the entire world of simulation drivers coming into this competition.
Awesome. So, have you mentioned due diligence? I'm sure you've done a little research on your competition. These are some pretty big name guys when it comes to Miatas.
There are. We have guys from Australia, and we have any spec Miata champion you have to worry about. They're going to be super quick. I have a lot of respect for any of these guys. I have a lot of respect for any racer. I love, just talking with any racer. It's just there's something you identify with. But yeah, they're going to be the best. Obviously, they have so much time in Mazdas, and they're going to be really fast. There is a double-edged sword to researching people. You don't want to focus on somebody too much, But I have done my due diligence. There's guys in England racing right now in the Walter Hayes Trophy. McGee Stevens, and I think he placed third in it last year. So he's been there before. And we've got all the spec Miata champions. So I'm not really focused on any one guy. My main concern is to focus on myself and to be fast on track. My main concern is I want to get the media right and I want to get the PR right, because I think everybody's going to be fast on track. And I think the difference is, do you understand the business of racing, and do you understand how to communicate to the media what your sponsors want to have communicated?
Yeah. So. Well, I can't speculate any more than you can, certainly, but to me it seems like the modern motorsports athlete is an entire package. It's not just any one skill set. It requires all of these things and a rounded ability. And I mean, you seem well prepared for all of it. I'm really pulling for you. I will be watching again, MazdaMotorsports.com, at Mazda Racing on Twitter, and hashtag MRT24, November 8th through 10th. So all of this, you can tune in and check it out for yourself. So Glenn, I'm hoping that when this is done, I can get you to come back and talk about it. I would love to hear the intensity and the transition from what you went through before and how it contrasted to what you're going through now. I like to hear what it's like to meet some of these guys who've, been running in Miatas for years in some cases. And it'd be great to hear how it all played out for you.
I would love to come back, and I have my own expectations for this competition. I think in general, I'm going to have fun. I do like being, even though you are being judged, I kind of like the challenge of it. And any time to get on track and meet other drivers and compete is going to be fun. So I'm going to make the most of it regardless of the result. But I do have my own sort of game plan, and I'm sure none of it will go the way that I planned. So I'll come back and let you know, what went right, what went wrong.
Well, I know you're giving it your all, because it's obvious from everything we've talked about here.
Yeah. Well, hopefully I come out on top. And I think, some people don't think the sim racers are going to be able to compete, but I think I do have a honest chance at winning it. And I think Mazda's going to give us a fair run at it. And I just have to make sure I'm quick on track and I'm perfect in the media and PR stuff, and show them that I'm the best choice. So that's what I intend to do. But if it doesn't come out, then either way, it's a great experience. So.
Absolutely. Like you said, it's going to be a lot of fun no matter what. And I think you're going to do great. I think you'll surprise some people who underestimated the and some sim racers,
I hope I'm not just building myself up for nothing here, but no, I feel really comfortable about it. So it should be a good experience.
Cool. So anybody out there, before I let you go, anybody out there you want to thank, anybody in your life who, whether it's sim racing or real life, that, kind of allows this or helps this happen for you,
Well, for sure. Well, first of all, you got to thank Mazda for helping all talented drivers. Even, they've been helping. They're the only manufacturer that even has a ladder system in the U.S. now. They are basically the company that brings talent up into racing. And to allow us sim drivers in there, I can't thank them enough. And iRacing for creating the software to help us develop as drivers and give us these kind of opportunities, and being able to race against the best sim drivers in the world, is just great. And my family and all the sim racing community, all the guys that I've raced against and who have been cheering me on. I've gotten a huge amount of support. Actually, I think I probably have the most Facebook likes of all the drivers that are competing because the sim community is so big and so supportive. And actually, if anybody wants to go to my Facebook page, you can go to facebook.com/Speedy McGee. And like that page, that'd be great. That would help me out. And also, if you want to go to my Twitter account, it's @Racer McGee, and that'd be great if anybody goes on there. You can, I'll be updating, where I'm at and what's going on with videos and
even better.
Even better.
Excellent. Well, Glenn, we'll all be tuning in, I'm sure. I can't wait. Best of luck to you, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, Shaun.
So there you go, Glenn McGee. He's off November 8th. He's going to be going against some of the best real-life Mazda drivers on Earth to see what he can do as a sim racer, as they put it, and show them up. And just with the way we all hope. That's what I'm pulling for. I hope you've enjoyed this interview. Thanks again, Glenn. This is the Simpit. I'm Shaun Cole, and I'll see you on the track.